Marcus sets his alarm for 5 a.m. every Monday. Perfect morning routine, meditation, journal, workout, healthy breakfast, no phone, until 8 a.m. Week 1, he executes flawlessly. Week 2, he hits snooze once, but recovers. Week 3, work stress hits, he sleeps through the alarm, skips the routine entirely, and by Friday, he's abandoned the whole system. Again, for the third time this year. I'm Max, and I've got your raw daily fuel for today. Here's what Marcus doesn't understand. He's not failing because he lacks discipline. He's failing because his standards are unrealistic. And here's the paradox nobody talks about. Unrealistic standards create the quit cycle. The higher your standards without proper design, the more likely you are to quit entirely. Today I want to show you why perfectionism is sabotaging your progress and how to build standards that create momentum instead of pressure. Let's start with the mathematics of consistency. If you execute a perfect routine 100% on the weeks you're motivated, but quit completely on the weeks you're stressed, your annual consistency is maybe 40%. But if you execute a minimum viable routine 80% of the time regardless of conditions, your annual consistency is 80%. The person with lower standards but higher consistency will always outperform the perfectionist who quits. This isn't lowering your ambition. This is understanding that consistency beats intensity every single time. And consistency requires standards you can actually maintain. Here's the design flaw in most people's approach. They set standards for their best day, then try to execute them on their worst day. Marcus's 5 a.m. routine works perfectly when he's rested, motivated, and stress-free. But life doesn't operate in perfect conditions. When he has a terrible night's sleep, when work is overwhelming, when life gets messy, his perfect standard becomes impossible. And when the standard becomes impossible, most people don't adjust the standard, they quit entirely. This is the quit cycle. High standards, life happens, can't meet standards, feel like failure, abandon entirely, start over with even higher standards to make up for it, repeat. The problem isn't the person, it's the design. Let me be clear about something. High standards without recovery become self-sabotage. If your standard is gym 6 days a week, perfect nutrition, 8 hours of sleep, no alcohol, meal prep every Sunday, that's not a standard, that's a full-time job. And the moment you can't maintain that level, you interpret it as personal failure rather than recognizing it as a design flaw. High performers in every field understand something crucial. Standards must include recovery. Athletes don't train at maximum intensity every day. They periodize, they rest, they adjust based on conditions. But somehow in health and fitness, we've convinced ourselves that any standard below perfection is settling. That's not excellence, that's sabotage. Here's what you need instead. Set minimums you can hit on your worst day. Not your best day, not your average day, your absolute worst day. The day you slept 3 hours, work is chaos. You're stressed and exhausted. What can you still do? That's your minimum standard. For Marcus, maybe it's 10 minutes of movement and 1 healthy meal. Not perfect minimum. But here's the power of minimums. They keep you in the game. On his worst day, when the 5 a.m. routine is impossible, he can still do 10 minutes. He hasn't quit, he's adjusted. And the person who adjusts consistently will always outperform the person who quits repeatedly. Let me give you a framework. There are 2 types of standards: momentum standards and pressure standards. Pressure standards push down on you, they create stress, they require willpower, they feel like obligations. Momentum standards pull you forward. They create progress, they build confidence, they feel achievable. Momentum standards have 3 characteristics. First, they're minimum viable, the smallest action that counts as a win. Second, they're stress-proof. You can execute them even on terrible days. Third, they're upgradable. When conditions are good, you can exceed them, but you never go below them. Marcus's new standard: move your body for 10 minutes every day. On great days, he does his full 5 a.m. routine. On good days, he does a solid 30-minute workout. On terrible days, he does 10 minutes. He never goes below 10, but he can always go above. This creates momentum. Every single day is a win, because every day he hits his minimum. And wins build confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency builds results. Pressure standards work the opposite way. They're all or nothing. Either you hit the perfect standard or you failed. They require ideal conditions. They only work when everything goes right. They're rigid. There's no adjustment for reality. When you can't meet them, you don't scale down, you give up entirely. This creates pressure. Most days feel like failures. Failures destroy confidence. Destroyed confidence leads to quitting. Here's the truth about consistency. Consistency is built through repeatable effort, not heroic effort. The person who does something small every single day will transform. The person who does something heroic occasionally will burn out. Your standard should create momentum, not pressure. Think about it from an engineering perspective. If you're building a bridge, you don't design it to barely hold the expected weight. You design it with massive margins. You stress test it for worst-case scenarios. You build in redundancy. Because when conditions get bad, you want the structure to hold, not collapse. Your health standards need the same approach. Don't design them for perfect conditions, design them for worst-case conditions, build in margins, stress test them. Ask yourself, if I have a terrible week, can I still maintain this? If the answer is no, adjust the standard until the answer is yes. Here's what I want you to understand. You're not weak for needing minimum standards, you're strategic. The strongest people I know have clear minimums. They never go below, regardless of circumstances. They know that maintaining the minimum on bad days is what separates sustainable transformation from repeated cycles of starting and quitting. Your minimums aren't your ceiling, they're your floor. On great days you build. On terrible days you maintain, but you never fall below the floor. That's how you create unbreakable consistency. Here's your challenge. Define one minimum standard you can hit on your worst day. Not your ideal, your minimum. Test it this week. If you have a terrible day, can you still do it? If yes, you've built something sustainable. If no, simplify further until it's truly minimum viable. Maybe it's 10 minutes of movement. Maybe it's one healthy meal. Maybe it's drinking water before coffee. Whatever it is, make it so simple, so achievable, so low friction that worst case scenario, you can still execute it. That's your floor. You can build from there, but you never go below it. Stop setting standards that require heroic effort. Start setting standards that create repeatable wins. Stop designing for your best day. Start designing for your worst day. Stop creating pressure. Start creating momentum. You're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because your standards are unrealistic. But realistic standards that you execute consistently will always beat perfect standards that you abandon repeatedly. That's your raw daily fuel for today. I'm Max. Build momentum, not pressure.